to demonstrate the need for initializer of a data member that doesn't have default constructor, let's create another small structure, and this structure we can call a pair. Okay, so we have a pair, and we can also call it like int pair of integers. And this structure we will define as a pair of two values, int first and second. And so we will require that whoever wants to use this integer pair has to use this constructor, which basically takes sorry, I'm hitting the wrong key, which takes both of these parameters, int first, okay, int first, and int second, right, first and second, as a set of parameters. And of course we can use initializer list to say this first will be initialized by this first, just like this, comma, and this second, or rather the second member of our pair is going to be initialized by this second. And if this looks a little bit confusing, which one is which, you can use something like underscore in these names, and then this is how they're being designated, right? So this is so these are the parameters, and these are the actual data members present in our data structure. And then the actual int pair constructor body itself is going to be empty. It doesn't do anything. So this is initializer list. This is how it starts. This is the list of elements present on this list, and so we initialize both of these. And the fact is that int pair does not have default constructor, because the default constructor is immediately removed by the compiler as soon as you add a specific constructor, because constructor begins to think you would like to require the users of this int pair structure to provide two integers to be able to create it. So now if we start using pair in our demo structure, right, so we say let's have a pair like this to be a data member part of our member function. So this is called object containment. Essentially, demo contains this int pair. And so we have written it like this. And let me save everything. And if I say build, okay, the error that I'm getting here is pointing to the definition of the demo constructor, and the error message says int pair no appropriate default constructor is available. So what it means is that we need to somehow, maybe we will require our users to provide these two integers on the list of basically on this list of parameters to create the demo, and then we can use first and second to construct the pair. So we're going to say pair, right? So we're going to add comma to this initializer list and provide first and second as parameters to have this pair initialized. Okay, just like this. Okay, so then of course this demo construction now requires provision of the values for these two parameters. So now the demo is expecting a reference to an integer, which can be initialized from this integer that we have inside of our main function. But now we also have to provide two integers to initialize first and second elements of the integer pair. And we're going to say maybe 1 and 2. Okay, so if we build it this way, we see that now it's building fine. And this is an example of using initializer list inside one of our structure constructors, where we must use initializer list to initialize the object contained within the demo, which in itself does not have a default constructor. Int pair has no default constructor, so it has only specific constructor, and our only chance to properly construct this pair is to somehow get the right set of parameters and use initializer list to initialize this data member using constructor initializer list. Finally, const member variable. Okay, so supposedly that we would like to add another data member, but it will be constant. I don't know, maybe we can use double pi as an example for this constant. So anyway, we want to be able our demo to capture this pi, but it will be provided, I think it will be provided by also by our constructor. I'm just going to use one constructor to do this. And so if we, temporarily, just temporarily, I'm going to get rid of this, okay? And as soon as you have something constant as a data member of your structure, it has to be initialized. Okay, so right now I try building this. The error message says the demo pi, this thing, pi inside demo, an object of const qualified type must be initialized. So it's pretty direct requirement that it has to be initialized. So let's just say that, I could initialize it like this. I guess I could just say this pi, I can initialize it with this level of precision. Okay, so this is a double value. So now I say, okay, yeah, I understand. I have to use initializer for my pi, and this now can be built. And once again, you cannot do this later on like this, okay, because it's not good enough to do it like this. Okay, so this cannot be done because this is a constant, and as soon as it's allocated in memory, it has to get its initial value. So if I attempted to initialize it like this and I try building this, you see L value specifies constant object, so this syntax does not or is not accepted by the compiler. We must use initializer list, which is not an issue. It does the same thing. It's just that we have to be placing this code on the initializer list instead of using any kind of programming statements. So these are the three demonstrations for all three cases where we have references, data members, and constant memory variables. There's actually another case when the structured demo inherits from some kind of base class, which also does not have default constructor. Then we also must use constructor initializer list to initialize the base. But we will definitely see examples of that in our future presentation, which covers C++ class inheritance. And this is also something that we have been talking about when we're discussing in our previous presentation about using constructors. The initializer list order must be respected. And basically, the idea of initializer list order is that what has to happen is that the order of these elements present on the initializer list should have the same order as data members as they're specified inside the data structure. Okay, and by the way, if I have some kind of integer that dummy right here, right, so which I don't want to initialize. I mean, it's probably a very bad idea not to initialize it, but it's possible to, or actually I have a better idea. How about we say we add a string object, okay? So string object can construct itself a string name, okay? Something like this. Okay, so this string has a default constructor and it can construct itself pretty well. But I really don't have to place it on this list. And even if I skip one of the members on my list, the rest of the elements should be following the same order in which they appear. So otherwise, constructors may give you these types of warnings that that the order of initialization does not follow correct order of data elements. So, by the way, let's try this and let's initialize pi on top of the rest of the data members right here, right? So we'll just reorganize it like this, and I will, of course, because I'm using string, let's include string header from the standard library and build this. Okay, so Microsoft compiler here, Visual Studio 2019 that I'm using, is not producing any kind of warning messages, but other compilers may give you a warning. So there's just something I think that makes sense to know that in the initializer list you can just approach it with some discipline and arrange the order of your initializer list to follow the same order as the order of the actual data attributes inside your structure, inside your user-defined data type that you're trying to put together. So this is advisable, but it's okay to skip a certain data members on this list, right? So we could use like we could place this name on this list just like this. We could just use default constructor like this, but it's not required. You don't have to do this. It's sort of like automatic. So again, if I build this, I get no errors. It's all fine. But if I do not include this string because I just want to initialize it with an empty string, I really don't have to place it on the initializer list, and perhaps it can save some time typing all of this and keep it just like this.